Hi and welcome to the CIPD Central London Freelancers and Independents Consultant Sessions. We're really pleased to be kicking off the 2021-2022 series, and we're really excited because this is the first of 6 sessions that we're running this year. So this session is on the 14th of September. Tickets are available on the CIPD Central London Eventbrite site, and tickets are free. So the aim of the session is to run a really interactive session where Rob's going to be sharing his input and his experiences in a great session that's hugely interactive, and it's all about presenting virtually. And again, we're joined by Charlie. So Charlie, if you want to introduce yourself and just a little bit about Rob today, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Charlie Goodman. I'm a member of the CIPD Central London branch along with Garen, and we've set up this group for independent consultants and freelancers in the HR world in Central London. So today's guest is Rob Geraghty, and he's from presenting virtually. He's spent the last 15 years of his career helping people to design and deliver more effective presentations. And Rob, would you like to introduce yourself and say hi?
Yeah, great to be here, Garen. Great to be here, Charlie. I guess for me, it all changed when I was on an aeroplane. I was flying back from America from doing some work there. It seemed like the dream gig. I'd been sent to the Bellagio Hotel in Las Vegas to coach some presenters before their important conference. But on the way home, halfway across the Atlantic, we have a medical emergency, have to fly back to Canada. My wife was about 32 weeks pregnant at the time. I don't want to be in this sort of situation anymore, being away from home and then terrible things like that happening. So I decided I wanted to go virtual and help people with their presentation still, but virtually, and hence presenting virtually was born. And then, of course, the pandemic came 2 years ago and everyone was like, oh my gosh, we need help with this now more than ever. And so things have been busy since then, shall we say.
Fantastic. Well, it's a very timely subject, and it's something that a lot of people that are watching this podcast are going to be really interested in as well. So I guess we're just going to take you through just a few questions that we're really curious about. So I guess when you started to help people with presentations, what kind of presentations do you support people with?
And I guess I'd say it's your very standard business presentation. So people often think about, there's lots of other presentations out there. There's TED Talks, there's, best man speeches. We don't do any of those sorts of things. We very much focus on your average business presentation. So that could be that you work in finance and you've got to come and deliver the Q4 quarterly update to the whole of the business. Or that might be that you're in supply chain and you've got to come and give everybody an update about a new process. So any sort of business presentation where, the presenter wants it not just to go okay, and I guess this is what I've always thought is that when you see most business presentations, they're, okay, 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. What I've always been interested in is, how do you make it like, wow, that was incredible, that was fantastic, that was a really amazing, enjoyable experience. It's working with those people that really want to up their game and be the best that they possibly can when they're delivering whatever presentation it is.
And people find presentations difficult, and some people find presentations easy. What's the leap like? How does presenting virtually make this different?
Well, I think, Charlie, it's just a bit different, but it is different, So just the simple fact of, I'm working this week with a group of senior executives. They're all very experienced presenters, but they're used to having the people in the room with them and the audience there. And when they say something and get some reaction back, well, now they're having to record. This is a conference type presentation. They're having to record in a studio, and the dynamics just changed. And there's lots of things that we believe have changed that they're micro changes. And what we share with people in our training, what I'm going to share with the group when we come together in September is some of the micro skills. And I call them micro skills because some of them are so tiny that you can pick them up in 5 minutes. I can explain the concept to you, and there you go, you've got it. But they are different in this world of virtual. So they build on what you've got before. But they are different.
Brilliant. And generally, when you're sort of approached to work with people, what are some of the common challenges people are coming to you with and ask you to work with them on?
Well, I think the big word, Garen, that always comes up is the word engagement. So, people are always saying, well, how do I engage this virtual audience? Because, and it is a genuine challenge, is the fact that, we can be multitasking. When you were in the room listening to a presentation, well, you had to sort of pay attention. Whereas now, if this presentation is not working, it's very easy for me to go over here and jump on my emails. It's very easy for me to switch the camera on and get on with something else. So we're fighting for audience engagement even more. And I think the second thing that people always say is really difficult virtually, and they don't know how to do, is how do I read the audience? So again, this whole idea that when the audience is in the room with me, I've got a sense of how it's going. Even intuitively, my gut feel says, okay, yeah, they're getting this, or they're a bit resistant to this. And I can read that when I'm in the room. People tell me virtually that they can't read that. Now, we would argue there's a whole load of micro skills that are going to help you to do that. But again, these are those subtle things that are slightly different. And if you can do those, then you genuinely can read your virtual audience. But again, because most people have never really thought about it, then they don't know what those things are.
How do you help people decide on and develop their key messages?
I guess it always comes to a conversation. And, and I have to get quite rude sometimes, Charlie. It has to be, well, so what are you trying to say there? What do you really mean? And I keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And, this is not just me. This is a team of us as presentation coaches. And, it's just keeping pushing to try and help people get to the gold bit. And again, what I see time and time again with presentations is there's lots of stuff in there, but the actual gold nuggets often get hidden. And this is where, what that presentation coaching process, we're asking those questions, we're really trying to dive into it. And then we finally get to, that's what you want to say, not that stuff over there, which actually was a load of background and stuff that wasn't that interesting, shall we say. So does that make sense what I'm saying there, Charlie?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess, and just picking up on one of those things as well, is a lot of people that make presentations are experts in their area, and they're really close to the detail. And often it's how do you get people to provide the right amount of information without overwhelming with people? And often, you talk about the use of stories. How do you use stories to help people make those presentations better and bring them to life?
Yeah, and I think story is always a really interesting word, because people often, when we mention that word story, think, oh, well, I'm not a good storyteller. If I'm down the pub with my mates, I'm not the one to tell a story. I guess for me, the word story just means a practical, tangible example. So how can you just give us a practical, tangible example rather than giving us some sort of theoretical words about it? So again, I remember working with a company, and they were talking about the cost benefit analysis. And, and there was a positive cost benefit analysis. Well, what does that actually mean? And what they did was we just told an example, and we said, well, look, if you're a customer like this, and if this is your situation, you'll be able to save this money by doing this step. And that for you will result in a saving of £30,000. All right, I get it now. So when I say stories, I just mean little anecdotes, little examples that bring things to life for people, rather than having some great skill of being able to weave together this incredible story.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so what kind of structure can you help people use to help their presentations?
What kind of structure? Well, there's lots of different options out there, aren't there? I mean, I guess for me, I'm almost going to say the most important thing is that you've got a structure, but also you communicate that structure. So one of the things that we're really big on is not having an agenda, but instead of having an agenda, having what we call a journey map. And it sounds like a subtle play on words, but actually there's a big difference. The typical agenda in a corporate presentation has 9 bullet points. And when you see it, you go, oh God, this is going to be awful. And it gets you into a bad state. So the journey map is quite simply saying, well, look, there's 3 things I'm going to cover today. I'm going to talk about our 2021 sales. I'm going to talk to you about a new product launch. And then I'm going to talk to you about the staff changes. And it's showing that to the people. That's showing them where we're going to go. And then it's bringing that back up again. So again, having that slide that shows it as a map, and then you show it again. You say, look, I've done the sales update. Now I'm going to move on to this. So that I guess, for me, the most important thing with structure is that people understand where are you going and where are we on that journey. Yeah. And the analogy I always think of is that, if I was to, drive down to your place, Charlie, I'd jump in the car, I'd put Google Maps on. Now, roughly speaking, I know that it's about 100 miles to get there, but I still put Google Maps on because I want to go, oh, 80 miles to go, oh, 60 miles to go, 50 miles to go. We're down to an hour to go. So I think there's almost this human innate desire to know, where are we going, and are we making progress? So in a way, I'd say almost whatever your structure is, I just want to see those marks in there to make it really clear for the audience. Because again, come back to that phrase, audience engagement. I think audiences, they come and they go. There's bits that they're more interested in, bits that they're less interested in. You might not care about the new product updates, but when I say we finished that bit and now we're going to come and talk about the new staff, all of a sudden you're back engaged and you're interested. So it ties in with audience engagement to do that.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's a really good point. And unfortunately, death by PowerPoint still exists today after all these years. I guess, how can people use slides differently or better? Like, what's some of the guidance you can sort of share with people? Because often people hide behind their slides, don't they?
Well, the simple phrase, again, it's one of the micro skills. One of the micro skills is ban the bullets. So we do not allow, and we do a lot of presentation slide design for people where we take their slides, we're talking to them about the presentation they're delivering, and we design their slides for them. And we make over those slides, but we never put bullet points in there. So, and people are just so wedded to that. And I think it's partly down to Microsoft's fault, because the default slide option is a bullet point slide, which makes you write down the slide in bullet points. And then, of course, what we do is we write lots of text on there. And, no one's ever said, oh my God, Garen, bullet point 7 that you did yesterday, that was the one that got me. So they remember the experience you create. And so I would just say ban the bullets, and how can you use that slide in a far different way? And maybe one of the things that we can do in the session is we could do some of that. We could, have a look at some slides. Maybe we could put a call out there for if anyone wants to submit a slide beforehand. I will happily get one of the design team. If we could get 2 or 3 slides, we could look at the original slide, and what we could do is I'll show you the made over slide of how we would present it differently. So, if anyone's listening to this thinking that sounds of interest, get them to send a slide into you guys, get it over to us. At least we need at least a week's notice to do this. And then we could make some of those up. And therefore we can look at some real life examples from the people in this community.
I might send some of our own slides.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's fine. You can do that if you want to. So, but I guess, come back to death by PowerPoint. It's a phrase that, in a way, it really annoys me because it's not PowerPoint's fault. Whose fault was it? And I'm afraid the fault comes down to you, the presenter, because you made the slide like that. PowerPoint is a very capable vehicle, but if you chose to make the slide in that way, that's down to you, the presenter. So I think that the challenge with death by PowerPoint is most people have never seen what good looks like and what could the slide look like and how could it be different. So again, we do a lot of training sessions where we show people, here's the before slide and here's how we reimagined it. And yeah, people go away almost their minds blown by that. It's quite simple stuff, but it really makes a difference.
And sorry, just a quick question to mention that as well. Obviously PowerPoint's the go-to for a lot of people. Do you use other platforms like, I don't know, Miro board or Mentimeter or Slido or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, those 3 that you mentioned there, I think are a bit more about polling and audience, getting the audience to do stuff. But, Prezi's out there is a very well-known platform. But look, the vast majority of the clients that we work with work in corporate organizations where Microsoft is the platform of choice and therefore they use PowerPoint. So, and again, what's interesting is people say, oh, I want to use Prezi because it can do this thing. Well, so can PowerPoint, you just don't know how to do it. And then what I find when people use other platforms is they often have to go and there's quite a lot of learning for them to do. So anything you want to do can be achieved in PowerPoint, and it's a very ubiquitous product. So definitely works. But I'm also a massive fan of all those things you mentioned, Miro and Mentimeter, slightly different purposes, but let's get those all in there as well.
Yeah, my world was changed with the Zoom function introduction into PowerPoint.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure there's some amazing stuff that we could show you in PowerPoint if that's of interest to people. So again, I'm just going to put a call out there. If people are watching this thinking of coming to the session that we're running, well, tell us what's of interest to you, because I can come and bring whatever you want to in this time, and we can do that.
On that kind of note about PowerPoint, obviously one of the interesting things that's happened is we're integrating the video of individuals with the video of the PowerPoint, and how do you avoid, I guess, becoming almost anonymous in your own presentation when you're delivering by sort of PowerPoint or another presentation thing in a facility such as Zoom?
Yeah, well, I mean, here's one of the things that I really dislike about all of the platforms is when we say that word, let me share the slides, what happens? Slides go really big and the video goes tiny. So again, one of the micro skills is a phrase that we call share slides wisely. And that means that if I've got something to show you, I put the slides on. But then when I've finished showing and explaining with that slide, switch it off, because we don't connect when we have a slide on the screen. And in most of the platforms, they make slides bigger than video. And actually the place where we connect is when we can see each other and we can have the conversation. So again, when we're advising clients, we're saying, look, share the slides now, but then switch them off and come back to the conversation and then share the slides again. So it's absolutely okay. But so many people, before you've even started, before you've even arrived and said hello, the slides are on. And I just don't think that's the right way. So I was going to say that then there's also something very specific in Zoom, which is something that a lot of people still don't know about, which is called side-by-side mode. So again, the standard thing in Zoom means that the slides go really big and then the people go really small. But if you use side-by-side mode, you can actually start to control that. And you could have slides 40%, video 60%, slides 60%, 80%, you can choose that. But the difficult thing as a presenter is you have to tell your audience to do side-by-side mode. So it's not something I as a presenter can control, but it's the people in the audience, they control it. So it's not ideal that I have to tell my audience how to make the best experience, but if that's something of interest. Again, I see a lot of people record videos with something like Zoom, and again, their video feed becomes very small and the slides are really big. Well, if you just use side-by-side mode, you can get a better balance of presenter and slides. And then there's other technical solutions which are getting far more technical, like using streaming software where you can integrate things on top. But that's another level.
You can see me and Charlie making notes as we're going
through. This is the free training, yeah?
Yeah, we're loving this.
We're not actually going to share this with anyone else now.
That's fine.
Also, like you're saying, it's people showing up on video. And that's quite a big thing in itself. What mistakes do you find people commonly make when it comes to actually showing up on the video and sort of engaging with their audience?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first section, the first bit of what we cover in most of our training that we do with people and coaching is what we call virtual presence, and that's all about how you show up and it's less about how you give a presentation and more about how you present yourself virtually. And there's 10 micro skills in there, and all of them basically about mistakes that you'll have seen. I'm just going to pick one of them, which is quite a fun one to demonstrate, which is this. People turn up like this. This is what we call the P head. Okay. And Garen, how do I look when you see me like this?
It's a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. But people turn up on this shot and you can't see their shoulders, you can't see the rest of their body. And it's just their head, and they look like a talking head. It looks weird, doesn't it? So, so yeah, I mean, there's loads of things: the bad lighting, the nostril shot. They're not actually looking at the camera. There's so many things here, and what's fascinating is, for most people, going virtual and was something that they were doing more of in the last 2 years, but people are still getting this stuff wrong. And look, and I don't think it matters if this is a chat between you and your teammates and your colleagues on a Monday morning. It doesn't matter there. But when you're going to pitch for £5 million worth of work, or you're trying to put your best foot forward, or you're running some training, these stuff really does matter, I think. Just like, what I'm wearing when I'm working from home doesn't matter. But if I came to see you in your office, I'd probably put my suit on and my best shoes, and I might shine my shoes. Again, I think there's things that we can do in that respect that are similar to that.
Yeah, I mean, I found myself, since I last saw one of your presentations, looking at the camera a lot more, which is great. Although one thing I've realised is I'm not looking at what people are actually doing on the video, and that sometimes there have been a couple of times where I've realised that perhaps I've missed some visual cues. How would you kind of deal with that?
Yeah, well, a couple of thoughts. So one of the pieces of advice, and we can talk about it, that we talk about is about looking down the camera. So I'm now looking right down the camera, and this to you then looks like I'm giving you eye contact. And again, this is where virtual is better than the face-to-face experience, because if I've got 1,000 people and I do this down the camera, 1,000 people will feel like I'm looking to them personally. Whereas if we were in the room with 1,000 people, I'd have looked over there at Mary for a second, then I looked over there to John for a second. I can't look at 1,000 people all at once, but with virtually I can. So looking down the camera, but again, I can't get so fixated about this that I forget the rest of the screen. So two things. I'd say that's an 80-20 rule. So when I've got a really important message, the key thing I want you to get is this: I'm looking down the camera, but I am also looking away. I'm looking at the screen. I'm looking at how it's landing. But then when I come back to the main thing that I want you to get, I'm going to come down the camera. So that's the first thing, is say 80-20 about this whole look down the camera thing. And secondly, this is why I never present alone. So I believe in dual presentations, of presenting with two people together. And what that means is right now I'm looking down the camera, but my co-deliverer, the person that's with me, they are being my second pair of eyes and looking around the audience. And they've got the permission that if they sense that this audience is all sat there going, scratching their heads like, what's this guy going on about? That they're going to jump in and say, hey, Rob, I don't think people are getting this point. So actually working as a pair together, but then again, this is a whole new set of skills to be able to work together and make that work. So yeah, a couple of ideas therefore of doing this looking down the camera, but it makes such a difference to your connection with the people at the other end if you can do more of it.
Right, yeah, because you just, your cognitive load is so much to do, isn't it? Is everyone muted? All those different things all going off at once, isn't it?
But again, I mean, it's a bit like, if you take the analogy into the office world, it's a bit like, you know, you've turned up to do your presentation, but you've also laid out the room, and you've also worried about the sandwiches, and you've also, you know, you've had too much to do. So again, let's just break this down. And again, if I can have somebody that's there in a supporting role, allows me to focus on the presenting. And look, and this can be a colleague who's they're gonna kick off the meeting. They're gonna worry about arrivals and greeting people and engaging with people. But I can just focus on my bit of doing the presenting bit. And that person might jump in and make some of the interaction happen. It's just, yeah, it's such a better way than just trying to do all of this on your own.
Fantastic. Now we're going to be really greedy here. Charlie and I have got loads of value from this conversation just ourselves. But if you had to leave people with like a top 3 or top 5 tips for them to take away in terms of sort of presenting virtually, what would those things be?
Well, I think one is a big theme, which is about engaging the audience. That's what it's all about. It's about engaging the audience, and we've got to design the experience that we want to create. So, but that's, you know, that then leads into a whole load of individual things that I think are really important. Secondly, I'd say virtual loves brevity. So again, this is one of our principles that we work with, is that just keep it shorter, sharper, snappier. And again, you know, one of the things that we've done today is it's moved around. It's been Rob speaking, Garen speaking, Charlie speaking. That's making this more dynamic. If this had been just Rob talking for however long we've been talking for, it wouldn't have been as engaging. So again, virtual loves brevity, move it around. And then the last thought, again, it's one of the principles, is that it's connection, not perfection. Again, I think this is a great phrase here, that yes, I can show you all these skills and all these individual bits, but if you're so focused on getting everything technically right, you lose the connection. So again, it's how do you build a connection virtually with the audience? And again, that can be some of those things that happen when people arrive, and how do you build connection? What do you do with them before you actually meet them? And again, there's loads of things that we could talk about there that can actually practically make a difference there.
Brilliant. Well, we just want to say a huge thank you for your time, Rob. We've got so much value from it. And we're really looking forward to the session that's coming up on the 14th of September. It's at 9:30. And you can get your tickets, and they're available on the CIPD Central London Eventbrite site. Tickets are free. You know, obviously this is a session that's for freelancers and independent consultants, but I think it's it's really suitable for any members of CIPD. And what we really like from the conversations that Charlie and I have had with Rob so far is it's going to be really interactive. So be greedy, bring your own questions, bring your own examples. The more you bring to it, the more you'll get out of it as well. So we're really looking forward to it. It's a little bit different to our normal sessions. Rob is going to be leading on this session the whole way through. So we're going to take a step back and just be really engaged participants in this as well. So thank you so much for your time, Rob. Really appreciate it. And Charlie and I are really looking forward to seeing everyone on the 14th of September.
Great. See you then.
See you then.